Welcome to NAMM, where every year we find out how much gear can smell like Axe body spray and disappointment. So what is NAMM? It's a whole lot of different things. It's a bunch of people getting together and trying to show you all their brand new products, but it's also sitting in a bunch of classrooms and listening to pros or experienced individuals talk about whatever is on their mind at the time. And me and Josh got to go to one called, as inflammatory as it may sound, The Future of Recording Studios, Opportunity or Crisis. The lineup for this one was too good to pass up. Alan Friedman, who's a CPA accountant partner, he was in a ton of different bands with very punny names. Lee Bench, he's one of Alan's partners and runs the Steakhouse Studio. Zoe Thrall, currently the director of the Hideout Recording Studio, has worked and managed some of the largest studios. Paula Salvatore, if you've never seen the documentary Sound City, go watch it. Fantastic. She's a former vice president of Capitol Studios. Rick Beato. Do I need to say anything? Fab DuPont runs Pyramix.net, Flux Studios. Really cool guy. Best accent in the business. Best hair in the business. David Bendeth, possibly responsible for one of the most iconic snare tones of all time. Probably worked on a number of records that you, or depending how old you are, your dad probably likes. A lot of records that I like. It was really interesting to hear their thoughts on recording studios. Now, all these individuals have either managed or worked very large scale recording studios, as opposed to what I do, which is kind of in the middle of the market. But what they had to say was all basically the same thing, that gear kind of matters, kind of doesn't matter. What matters is how you treat the people, the hospitality side of it. Fab even went as far as to say redoing his bathroom is what got some of the biggest artists to come in. And he said it was the stupidest thing. It doesn't matter, but that's what artists care about. And I think this is the part that is really interesting for us, regardless of the size of your recording studio and whether you're at home or not. If you're in commercial space or you're at home, what can you provide to the person that you're working with that they can't provide for themselves at home? For me, I'm kind of filling a gap between a home studio and really, really large scale studios, but kind of trying to provide that same service. If you're still a home studio, what can you provide that's beyond their own possible recording at home? Because even though people can do it, doesn't necessarily mean that they will. One of the things that I found super interesting and also really comforting to hear from other people who have worked in recording studios for decades, more than I have. Pro Tools and DAWs in general are not the downfall of our industry. They saw that start, like from working recording studios and tape machines, and then here comes personal home equipment that you can do. It's not that's closing down studios, and as much as you can point to it, they actually openly said what closed some of the largest studios that they worked for and in and helped to build. And it was things that you would expect. Someone died and the rest of their family didn't want to continue that. Or somebody took out a loan and decided not to pay it. Those are things that are going to close studios. And as much as we can point to Pro Tools as the downfall, or what is it now? Atmos is the downfall, or software plugins are the downfall, analog versus digital. It can be whatever argument you want it to be. But if you're providing a service to people and you're giving them things that they need, you're going to be hard pressed to fail in this, all other things being equal. And we can listen to these heavy hitters in the industry, people who are working in some of the biggest recording studios in the world. The comforting part about this is even they at the top, it's not necessarily about the gear. They have all the gear. And they'll be the first ones to tell you that sometimes the artist comes in, plugs in their own device into their Thunderbolt port, and they're running just their computer in their space. Fab actually said, if he could do it all over again, would you purchase the same gear? And they asked this to everybody, and Fab made a really interesting point. Get the gear you need to function, but he would make as many acoustically perfect rooms as possible. That way, when you're doing the job with the artist, what you hear is what you get. The board bounce that you get at the end of the day sounds fantastic when they're listening to it that night. And that's all part of the experience that you're giving to the consumer. And if you're treating them right, they have a good experience. On the hospitality side of this is what it needs to be from a genuine standpoint, not just doing it because you want to keep those clients. But then if they can take those files and then they sound good, and nothing's mixed yet, nothing's mastered yet, but it sounded good because you knew exactly what your room sounded like. It's acoustically perfect. that's going to be a return client, and word of mouth gets around like crazy. So to hear it come from their perspective as well was really interesting and kind of comforting, because it was kind of some of the same things that I have said from the get-go. That seems like a really big pat on my own back, but it was cool to hear it from other people. The whole wraparound thing was like, you can have all these recording studios and you can have an argument over whether studios are failing or not, but you need to provide a service that they can't provide themselves. And having a absolutely perfect, or as perfect as it could be, space to record in, space to record drums in, a space to get as many people as you can get in one room to play. Having that room sound good is really, really hard for people recording on their own. And eventually, even if they are recording in their homes, that's going to be a limitation that they come up against. So if your goal from as early on as you can think of is to get that room sounding as controlled as possible, as predictable as possible, and as good as possible, man, that is a huge service that you can provide that will never go out of style. So what do you think? Does this comfort you as somebody who's interested in wanting to do record production, recording studio stuff? Do you have a recording studio? Do you feel like it's dying? Do you feel like your business is good? I personally think this is a great time to have a recording studio. That's just one man's opinion. And this is just the second day we've been here at NAMM. It's been really interesting to watch all of these booths come up. It's a bonkers experience if you have never been here, and kind of overwhelming and a little overstimulating if I'm being totally honest, but stay tuned for way more overstimulation. If you like this video and you want to be even more pissed off about why recording studios are possibly closing, go watch this video about Atmos and you'll hate watch the whole thing.